So this is another OpenChain webinar, part of our series. I believe this is webinar 102, which gives us quite a long run of webinars in the last 5 years, and we've had all types of topics with one central theme, which is if you're addressing a trusted supply chain, if you have to manage open source with that approach, if you're thinking about things like license compliance or security compliance or regulatory compliance, what is the stuff you need to know? That unifying theme has covered some things which are very directly about open source license compliance or security, and some things which are more about community assessment, incoming concerns, things that are developing. Now, today's talk falls on the first side of that spectrum. It's very much about something that is important to anyone dealing with open source automation, compliance, regulation, and so on and so forth. And in particular, today's topic will touch on something which is on everyone's mind, and that's the Cyber Resilience Act. So we're going to be looking at a project which is EU funded, and it's there to help improve cybersecurity and compliance for small to medium enterprises. That's important for those of you who are outside the EU, and I see one or two people dialing in from outside at this moment. The majority of the EU market, by far, is small to medium enterprises. It's very similar to Japan in that regard. So, how do we help them with the CRA? How will open source and security or compliance be addressed, supported, and made easier? Well, we're about to find out. Before we formally get started, I'll show the antitrust policy notice. We show this at the beginning of every OpenChain meeting and indeed every Linux Foundation meeting. The full antitrust policy can be found on the Linux Foundation website. And if you're from a member company, any questions can be asked of our counsel, Andrew DeGrove. Now, today, our two speakers are people I have known for a long time. I think I've known both of you for well over 15 years. I remember meeting Martin when I was still young and beautiful. We were very early days of something called the European Legal Network, where lawyers across Europe got together and started to talk about how to manage open source. And Andreas has been involved in open source management for a very long time as well. And if I remember correctly, Andreas's headquarters is in a little castle in Germany. Is that right? Yes, it is. I was telling people that last week at Open Source Summit North America, and they got quite excited. So I'm afraid your peaceful little castle might be overrun shortly. Anyway, Andreas and Martin have been in this field for a long time. Business side, legal side, and perhaps most importantly, community side. They've both been active, persistent, and helpful contributors. And today, they're going to teach us something new. With that, I'll hand over to both of you.
Thank you. So I'll share my screen. You should now see something. Good morning, everybody. Free and open source software is the foundation of modern software development. So almost every digital product is based on open source component. And in Europe, with the Cyber Resilience Act, the requirements are increasing for manufacturers. So all of the manufacturers, they must ensure that all third-party components, including open source, do not comprise cybersecurity. And complying with these regulations is quite a huge challenge, especially for SMEs. So the European has awarded funding to consortiums who develop tools to make it easier for SMEs. And we have been awarded one of these funds, and today we're going to present the project OCCTET. The OCCTET project is a toolkit or a tool chain which consists of established tools like ORT and ScanCode. And we will automate it to make it more easy for especially these small and mid-sized companies to comply with all the obligations that they have with the CRA. There will be a database which will enable reuse and make it faster to comply or to find out the real source of all these components. My name is Andreas Kotulla. I'm the CEO of Bitsea. Bitsea is specializing in auditing software systems and evaluating and identifying hidden risks. I'm delighted to have been invited by Shane for this meeting here, and I'll shortly hand over to Martin to introduce himself as well.
Thanks, Andreas. Yeah, so I'm Martin von Willebrand. I'm the CEO of DoubleOpen. Yeah, as Andreas explained, we are together in the OCCTET project, which is addressing the Cyber Resilience Act and helping European, in particular SMEs, to comply with the Cyber Resilience Act. In the OCCTET project, we have 7 organizations in total. DoubleOpen and Bitsea are 2 of them. And we, with DoubleOpen and Bitsea, we collaborate in particular around the setting up of the automation tool chain using open source tools. I'm from DoubleOpen. DoubleOpen is a quite recent setup startup using open source tools to help you do software analytics, software security compliance, and software open source compliance. And we are adding regulatory compliance elements as we go. So with that, I think introductions are done. So Andreas, please.
Okay. So I would like to start with some short questions for the audience. So if you could just scan the code that you see on the lower left corner, and then once you're logged in, we will run through some of the questions. So just take your mobile phone, and I'll just wait some seconds until you have the code. I guess if you're all set. And then the first question I have is, when we look at the security requirements of the different companies, just to see where your company is. So if you look at these jumbled letters, which one makes your IT department sweat? Is it the CRA, the Cyber Resilience Act? Is it DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act? Or is it NIS2, the Network and Information Security Directive? Or you have never heard of anything of that, but you think it sounds threatening? Or you're well prepared for everything? Let it run for another 10 seconds. We see that the CRI is still at the top. Then at the end of the session, we will quickly get back to this and see if it remains the same. Okay, then I'll jump to the second question. When you're dealing with open source, what causes you most headaches? Is it the security vulnerabilities? Is it license and compliance issues? Is it export controls and legal gray areas? Or is it the operational reliability and maintainability? Or is it all together and your team is trying to manage it with Excel? Again, we'll have it here for some seconds. You see license and compliance issues still at the top. Okay, thank you. So this gives us a first impression on where we are with the CRA and with the challenges that people have. And I would like now to explain you OCCTET. So as Martin has mentioned already, OCCTET, we are a consortium of 7 companies from the European Union. There's, you may know AboutCode. They are the author of ScanCode and many tools around open source. As Bitsea, as an auditing company, DoubleOpen, responsible for the ORT. Eclipse Foundation is part of our consortium, together with the European Digital SME Alliance. It's an alliance supporting small and mid-sized companies in the European Union, giving them a voice in Brussels. Expertware is a Romanian company, software development company, and Red Alerts, a security company from France. So we all have formed up to reply to a call for projects from the European Union. When the European Union established the CRA, the main intention is to strengthen cyber resilience. So it's all about security, cybersecurity. And the CRA has many different obligations. We'll go through that in a minute for digital projects, which you need to fulfill. And this is a lot of work for big companies, but they have the power to establish their own departments to take part of that. For the SMEs, where often we just see 2 or 3 developers, it's a very high burden to do that additionally. And for that, the European Union was looking for ideas how these companies can be supported, so that also that everybody can comply with these obligations. And this is what OCCTET is. So it's a tool chain with several tools helping at the beginning to find out, do I need to take care of CRA at all? Then it will do a gap analysis to show you if you're missing some things. And then, of course, it will help you identifying the components and open source components. Together with the known security vulnerabilities, it will create the SBOM, which is one of the basic requirements that you need. So the goal is to have, at the end, a highly automated process and tools so that everybody, also without in-depth knowledge, can fulfill all the obligations from the CRA. And this is heavily sponsored by the EU. The EU issued for this project, it's around 2 million euros, which is shared in all the companies that you see below for the development of these tool chains. If we look at the new EU regulations, especially the CRA, our designer came up with this picture. So the main part, it's 5 different pillars that we look at. And the main part is cybersecurity. So this is very important that all the companies have secure products that can not be hacked. And one of the key parts of the cybersecurity is the risk management. So you need to know what is in your software. Are there any known security vulnerabilities, or are there any risks how the software can be attacked? Of course, there's also a harmonization across Europe. So it's all the same for all the European states. And there is a lot with reporting. So there are central agencies that whenever an incident happens, it needs to be reported in quite a short time frame. And the accountability changed. So you cannot delegate the accountability, as always, with the upper management. So they need to ensure that all the CRA requirements are somewhere fulfilled. Now, if we look at this nice building, there are many hints and many presentations that talk about how you do reporting, what you need to do with the harmonization, or how you do the risk management. But you will see in this picture, all of this is built on software. So software is the foundation. The digital products is all we are talking about. And there is always some part of proprietary code. There may be some commercial code in there, but the big part, the majority of the code is always open source. And what we have seen, unfortunately, is that open source often has been forgotten. and is not in the focus. But to do a thorough risk management, you need to look at this open source. And this is what we are going to do in this presentation. Martin, is there anything you would like to add to this picture?
No, I think that was good. I'll join later.
Okay. Then I'll just, for those of you who are not very familiar with the CRA, I have some high-level objectives, what all the companies need to comply with. So the first part is that cybersecurity, you don't look at it at the end. It's taken into the whole development cycle of the product. So it's important that you think about cybersecurity right from the start, from the planning, from the design, development, production, delivery, and the maintenance phase. You need to document all cybersecurity risks that you foresee. And as a manufacturer, you have to actively report whenever any of your products has been exploited. So if there was a vulnerability or an incident, it needs to be reported in quite some short time, 2 or 3 days. And every product that has been sold must be supported for the whole lifetime with patches and 5 years thereafter. So whatever product you give to the market, you need to ensure that all the vulnerabilities are handled effectively. There need to be clear and understandable instructions for the products with digital elements, and you need to have these security updates. So these are some of the key objectives which you need to fulfill for the CRA. And I have put that into different obligations. So first one, this is part of the risk management. You need to identify and document vulnerabilities of your components. Now, if you look at open source, you know that many of the older components, they have some known security vulnerabilities. You need to be aware of those, you need to document it, and you need to evaluate if you need a patch that you need to put on your system or not. And you need to do that immediately, including provided patches. So you cannot wait for 3 months, 6 months. The immediately is the exact word like it is in the law. So it's immediately is not defined in hours, but it means quickly. So rather within days and not within months. You need to do effective and regular testing. So you need to create your SBOM regularly. You need to be up to date, and you need to check that regularly if there are any new security vulnerabilities, just to make sure that your product is safe. If you find some vulnerabilities or security holes, you need to inform your customers, and you need to provide patches if it is a severe security vulnerability. You need to have some policy or process to disclose the security vulnerabilities. You need to have some measures to pass on that information. You need to have contact data. You must be reachable for the CRA. You need to have a mechanism to distribute updates so that you can actually patch all your products. And you need to do that free of charge for up to 5 years. So, and this is just some of the obligations that I picked that have directly to do with the software and open source software. And you can imagine if you are a small development department with just a few developers, always under time pressure to develop new features, this is quite a burden to do that additionally, because it requires regular methods and regular processes which need to be executed at least once a week to be up to date. And for this, OCCTET is going to help.
Andreas, I could comment a few words on the last slide, the obligations there. Just to in case you're familiar with financial regulations, it might be helpful for you to understand, and also otherwise, that one of the obligations you have is that you should create a type of a risk assessment of your product. And when you do a risk assessment of your product, in that risk assessment, depending on what type of product is and what type of risks are involved, you can then adjust a little bit what type of actions you will do within these obligations that Andreas described. That's a high-level observation. A detailed observation that's quite interesting to us in the open source community is that one of the obligations that's in the CRA is that you actually have to do upstream contribution of security patches in case you do your own security patch to something in order to fulfill these immediately addressing vulnerabilities. Then you also have an obligation to do an upstream contribution on that. So that's now directly as a stipulation in the Cyber Resilience Act, and in a way an interesting aspect, driving to the right direction. Absolutely.
What we also can mention is that in Europe there's the Cyber Resilience Act addressing all digital products. But there are some additional laws like the DORA, which I mentioned in the questionnaire in the beginning, that's addressing especially the financial industry. And then there is NIS2, which is addressing mostly the industry with critical infrastructure. And all of these laws have or regulations, they have the same risk management. So for all of these regulations, you need to be able to look at your contents at the SBOM and produce the patches for that. So in Octet, we have split it up in 5 work packages. There's one overall project coordination and management. Then we have one work package where we define and specify, write up the specification, the compliance procedures and document. Then the work package 3, this is the big work package where we build the tools, where we combine the scan code, ORD, and some more tools and build something new to automate this discovery, the evaluation, remediation, and compliance. We are also putting in AI to make especially the curation process easier. For everybody of you who run through open source compliance, you know it's easy to run the tool. The tool will provide some indicators, but then somebody needs to look at all the discoveries and put some manual effort into it to evaluate, to see, yes, it's really open source, or this is the license, or these are the security vulnerabilities. And then at the end, this will be processed to an SBOM. And this is quite a cumbersome, lengthy process, and this we want to make much easier. Then we have one work package where we will have validation and use cases. So we have some companies who will run the tool chain and see how easy it is to use. And if there's anybody out there who wants to contribute as well, so we are looking for further volunteers who can jump in this validation where we will test the usability of the product. And then we have one work package where we have the dissemination, communication, where we do all these presentations. So altogether, this forms Octet. And we will now jump specifically in the work package 3. That is where Martin with DoubleOpen and Bitsea is working in. Martin,
perhaps anything? I can make a shorter further advertisement on the work package 4. So basically, if you have, if your company or organization is an SME, or you have suppliers that are SMEs or similar, we would hope them, you and or them to, in a way, go to octet.eu and possibly fill there the survey, and by that you would register for what we call the wish list. And that will basically give you free consultancy on the CRA requirements while we test the tooling output that we've created, and you will be giving us feedback on that, and on the other hand, you will be getting some free tooling and free consultancy. And for that, basic, I would say there's like 2 parts. One is in a way more the consultative approach, where the expertware and Red Alert Labs is the key partners, where in a way we are like where it's about a gap analysis of your activities and how CRA applies and which elements of the CRA apply. It's also holistic. It covers all of the CRA obligations, and that's one part of it. And then another part of it is, in a way, the software product analytics and analytics automation, which is more like for DoubleOpen and Bitsea, where we like use those parts of the tool, basically OSS Review Toolkit combined with scan code and the tools we are building on top of these, and all, of course, are and will remain as open source tools. So by joining by going to OCCTET.eu, you can find there a survey. If you fill the survey, you'll be automatically added to the wish list. It's a 5-minute survey. It'll help us a little bit to categorize what type of company you are. If you have suppliers that you would want to have be in a better posture with respect to CRA, you could also even invite them to join the OCCTET.eu. Thanks. Yeah, Andreas, please.
Yeah, okay. So I'll start with a short introduction of work package 1. So this is the survey for SMEs if they are under the, when they need to find out if they are affected by the CRA at all. So it's like a questionnaire. You go through the web page, you could just click yes, no, where you are. And at the end, the system will tell you either you're outside of the CRA scope or you're inside the CRA scope. So this is kept very simple and very easy. You can quickly do it. And then at the end, you will know if you are affected or not. And if you are affected, then you would jump in the gap analysis, which will be done in a very similar method. So you also have a questionnaire. And at the end, you have this first assessment, if you are affected and how you are affected, what you need to do. So this is part of the work package 1 and 2. And then the work package 3, which will be the core element of our presentation today, is the evaluation and how we need to automate it. And so what we need to do is, what we want to do is an open source toolkit that we developed to streamline the generation of SBOMs. So this we want to do very effectively and very fast. And with this SBOM, we can then quickly evaluate security software vulnerabilities. There are many databases available where these vulnerabilities are captured. And with the SBOM, it's easy to query those and get the results. This will enable effective remediation strategies. And this will help the security of the open source components which are in your product. And we want to automate that as far as possible to make it easy for everybody. The technical solution that we have is mainly based on ORT, and Martin will explain that in more detail in a minute, and he will also give you a demo on how that looks like. The first, or the overall goal, is we want to reach the CRA compliance. And when you have worked with the tools like ORT or ScanCode or any other tools, scanners, SCA tools, you know it's not very easy to get them up and running and to do them, scan the code, and it's even more difficult to run through this curation process. So what we want to do is a very easy installation, and we will have different variants. So one will be a cloud service that we offer that everybody can use ready-made. And another idea is that we have some container or some easy installable, which is also ready-made, where you have the whole tool chain pre-installed and pre-configured as a pure open source application, which will be hosted under the Eclipse Foundation. And everything to just set it up and get it running will be part of that component that we deliver. It will contain the ORT server for also dependency analysis, code analysis. We will have a federated database where we can easily reuse created data and also find vulnerabilities. And we will generate the SBOM and the VEX. If you're not familiar with the term VEX, so you normally have the SBOM, which is just the list of components with the version and where you can find them. And the VEX is an additional list, the vulnerability exchange list, For the SBOM, which is more of a static kind for a product that you have. So once you release a product, you do the SBOM once, but there will be new security vulnerabilities detected every day. So this VEX is a dynamic list, and you can recreate it frequently. And this will contain the security vulnerabilities, as well as an evaluation if that security vulnerability really affects your product or not. So you may have an open source component with a security vulnerability where you don't need to care because that part of is not used or not active or cannot be exploited, or it can be a security vulnerability which can have a severe effect if it is exploited in your product. If we look at the overall very high level architecture, so we will have source code that somehow goes into our system landscape. We will have an AI service that will prepare the code and work together with the ORT server to take away all the basic, the easy, the repeatable work that you need to do during curations. Our very first initial idea was that we will write a system that can do everything by itself and creates high quality reports. But then when we came up with all the requirements and all the different scenarios, it is very complex, these auditing and doing the curations. So we think it cannot be fully automated. However, AI can help a lot to make it easier. And there are lots of standard tasks, which is just a lot of clicking or just a lot of basic research. And all of that we want to take away. So if we can reach 50–60% automation, that will be a huge increase in the performance and will make the auditing time much shorter. Then we will have this reference database. And here we also want to reuse what is there in the internet already, plus an additional layer and an additional database where we have high quality curation data. And at the end, you have this reporting where we have the SBOM with the vulnerability report. So this is the very high level picture, and I'll jump into some more details. Martin, is there anything you would like to add to this picture?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So then I think, Martin, this is your slide for ORT.
Yeah. So, yeah, a little bit on the building blocks and that we are using in the automation tool chain. So we are using the OSS Review Toolkit. Is in a way the technology, the open source technology just has been existed already for quite some time. I guess it was set up by Sebastian Schubert in 8 years ago, and now it's been used in quite a bit many places. But it's a Apache 2.0 open source project and been developing actively. However, it's been a CLI tool, pure CLI tool, a command line interface tool. So there are some challenges for certain people to use that, and also then its configuration is it's a super configurable tool. Somebody said it's the perfect example of a German engineer approach, and yes, it's really, there is quite a bit of configuration, so it's not so easy to take into use. So then what we are using now is we've added ORT server to the picture, which actually then renders the CLA, the OSS Review Toolkit CLA, into a APIs, adds user management, access management, and also then adds a UI, easy to use UI. I will be soon demoing that to you. We've also added a DoubleOpen server to the mix, at least on the DoubleOpen end, which we use to that's also another open source piece of software, which we use to help inspect files and cache all scanned files to ensure that we only scan file, each file is only ever scanned once. even if the same file exists in multiple packages, and also provides a nice curation interface. Yeah, so really the rest of the slide is the same advertisement for octet.eu that I actually already made. So perhaps a reminder on that: if you go to octet.eu, you can find there the survey where you can sign to the wish list. And yeah, that will allow you to become part of the Octet community and yeah, receive information, and also then possibly also participate and get into free consultancy from the Octet community. And yeah, next slide, please. So this is yours, yes.
Yeah, so I'll just briefly go through this. This is some of the use cases we went through when we started designing the product. So there will be the use of AI to discover automatically open source dependencies, do code analysis to create an accurate SBOM. We will have lots of reference data that we will use from this federated and shared metadata to enrich the SBOM. We will have an automated VEX creation that you can frequently do to evaluate the security vulnerability exposure. And we will get this report. And you will see here so DoubleOpen will work on this first part, ABCD, that's the AboutCode. Here's the Eclipse Foundation, and down here there's Bitsea. I have one slide with the AI workflow that will be new to the ORT environment, and which shall make it easier to do these curations. So we will get some kind of input of the code, and then the big question is, how can an AI help? So we will first have a preprocessor to enrich the input with additional data so that we can, at the prompt, create a good question for the large language model. Then we will use external databases, resources from the internet and internal database to create this data. And with this modified input, we have this prompt that goes to the LLM. And then we have the enriched output, which can help with the curations. And we have many use cases what we can support. But one was with the detection of different copyright holders, which may be spread all over your systems, and they can automatically be aggregated to several license texts. We have a specific detector for license text. Very often you will see, especially in MIT, there are so many different variants. And the scanners, very often, they just give you the SPDX license text or an indication this is an MIT, but they will not tell you the exact variant. We will have systems that can detect false positives, so you do not need to take care of them anymore. And many more. So there are 12 different scenarios where we want the AI to help the auditor to be much faster and do the processing. Then we can jump to the ORT server demo from Martin.
Yes, so yeah, so the ORT server project actually was initially initiated by Bosch, and I think Marcel is here also, was at least a moment ago. So we are currently working together in DoubleOpen with Bosch to push forward the ORT server project. But basically what I'm demoing you now is the ORT server UI, and then in a way the functionality is enabled by that UI, which then goes down to the OSS Review Toolkit functionalities, and then also the inspection of files happens in the DoubleOpen server. But yeah, just a moment, let me. Okay, so Andreas, could you please stop your screen share so I can then start mine? Thank you. So hopefully you are now seeing my screen here. Andreas, is it showing good?
Yep, showing good.
Thank you. So what you are seeing here is a the DoubleOpen's instance of ORT server. This is basically an open source ORT server application. We have some, in a way, small DoubleOpen branding here, but other than that, it's a generic view. I'm showing you here now the organization view. We have a demo organization here, and this particular demo organization then has 3 products. Let's dive into those in a moment. You could in principle add then products here, and then when you go into a product, I'm now going into the X-Road product here, then one product can have multiple repositories, even hundreds of repositories. A repository could be a Git, or it could be an SBOM. It could be even a package or zip file. Some of these functionalities are not just now available, but will soon be. So here you could then add new repositories if you want. Basically, you give an URL to a Git repo. That's the simplest way to add. But I'm not now going to add any repo here. So and then we'll jump into under the product, into the repository. In this particular, this is the X-Road metrics repo. Here we can see different details of the repo. The latest run has been done this morning by myself of the analysis there. You can see the SBOMs available in a couple of different formats and different flavors there. We have some other notice documents available here. And then you can also, for example, inspect vulnerabilities here. Oh, by the way, you can also, what's maybe interesting, you can inspect the vulnerabilities of all your repos, and even on the organizational level, you can see vulnerabilities of the whole organizations. This is like the prioritization of vulnerabilities is still, there's a lot of work to do, but for now, we have some, in a way, nice data what they can dive into this. But as you know, if you work with vulnerabilities, the problem is not so much of availability of data. You have a lot of data as we have also here, and available, but it's rather to know on what exactly to act on. And yeah, we are also working on to make the prioritization, improve on the prioritization there. Yeah, and but diving in, then I've shown you now the hierarchy here, how the hierarchy works in the ORT server. I'm now diving into this particular repo, looking a little bit on the rule violations here. So these are then rule violations arising out of the rules. That's you may know, if you know OS Review Toolkit, you know one part of the toolkit is the ORT evaluator, and it requires a set of rules. So we have rules that identify, for example, commercial licenses, free restriction licenses, strong copyleft licenses, so, and then they provide errors which can then be inspected, looked at. For example, let's look at this Python packaging. Here we can see that there's an error. Scan code has found there's detected, which means a scanner finding something called a license ref scan code proprietary license. There's a proprietary license found that triggers the commercial license rule. We have here a how to fix type of thing that we derive from our rules. This may be a third-party proprietary software. However, first check whether finding is false positive. We'll check it in a moment. If it's not a false positive, check whether you already have the license. We have a set of rules how you can, in a way, address this and what you should then do to, in a way, fix this resolution. But basically, we are now inspecting this file with the DoubleOpen server. I'm jumping to the DoubleOpen server side, which allows me to inspect the files. So it now takes me directly to these 2 hits. these files where this license scan code proprietary license is, I can go directly into these two files, look whether it's a thing. I'm now seeing the file. I can see that the package declares Apache 2.0, but this particular find the scanner detects MIT and license scan code proprietary license. I can see that the MIT license lines 6 and 10 is in a way the scan code hits start for the MIT license here. I can also see the lines, so there's 7 lines. So for some reason, scan code then sees this as a possible proprietary license. To me, this is a quite clear false positive. Before doing a fix here, I can here fix, do a license conclusion. I can do some inspection on the left-hand side, for example. I can remove the filtering here. I can remove collapses. So now I can look at the whole package. I can see, yeah, here I can see we have a BSD license here. We have an Apache license here in the root, and we have a license text here in the root. I can do some, in a way, auditing of this particular file, reviewing whether I can also see here what are all the different scanner findings. I can go into the different scanner findings. I have now this one selected, and let me. So now I'm happy to conclude that this is actually a false positive, this scan code proprietary license. So I'll just do a conclusion. I could actually select here an MIT license, but this way I can only select one license. But if I could also write an SPDX expression here, it could be like and or it could be quite complicated SPDX expression. But here this way I'm just fine submitting this MIT license. Seemingly I'm getting an error. Well, let's not look into that too much. So then just quickly look at this other file here. So here's another file. The screen has a little bit, where the scan code finds a quite horrendous license finding here. But anyhow, this seems to be okay. So this seems to be like a file. When I'm looking at where this is finding, this seems to be a file that actually somehow validates packages and their licenses. So when I'm looking at, so this is likely another false positive. Most of these are false positives. So this is the way you can use then inspecting those files with the help of the ORT server, and then in this particular case the DoubleOpen server. I think that's for that demo. I think we have one more slide perhaps to go. Oh, I need to stop sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the one last point I wanted to make is that many of the organizations now need to think about upstream contributing differently, and there are like multiple reasons for that. We have both in a way the cyber resilience in general. Software security is becoming important on many aspects. We have the continuous growth of industrial grade cyber crime, but we also have the geopolitical tensions rising. So we have state-sponsored hybrid warfare. So and then we have the regulations kicking in. All of this. So and the regulations require you to be able to contribute upstream. So one of the things that many organizers realize that their upstream contribution capabilities are not at the good level enough, enough at a good level to allow for actually complying with the CRA. So one thing we are doing as part of the OCCTET project, we are also trying to help address that. So what are you going to need to be able to boost your upstream contribution? You are need to understand what in a way open source dependencies you are depending on, and that's the SBOM. That's what the ORT server provides you. You are going to need to do some maturity assessment of those dependencies. Which are those dependencies that are likely to get their updates anyhow, and where do you need to be able to focus your activity or either switch out? So we are hoping to add some maturity assessment similarly available as the vulnerability assessments into the ORT server and basically enable the ORT advisor to do some more work, not just vulnerability advisory, but also maturity advisory. And then you are going to need guideline and process on top of that to help you do more contribution boosting. This might be actually something that the OpenChain community could help build globally. And I realized from Shane's introduction that that's something that the OpenChain community is actually already perhaps starting to work on. But yeah, I think that's my final note.
Mm-hmm.
And Andreas?
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to go back to the survey that we had in the very beginning when we were looking what is most concerning about this CRA. And when you remember, the most votes went into the compliance, or that compliance is a big part that people worry about. So for the CRA, actually the security is the most important part. It does not very much talk about compliancy or any other risk. It's mainly, a CRA is about security. Just to have a quick look at the survey. Yeah, I think we are through with the first high-level overview of the OCCTET project. We started with that in December. It will run for 18 months. So mid next year, we plan to have everything ready. But by the end of this year, we will have first initial demo versions with some limited capability that can be tested. Thank you for listening. We are open to questions now. And I think I can just take one question already that I saw that was about do we need to produce an SBOM or not? So when you read the CRA, interestingly, the word SBOM is not mentioned in there. However, it's mentioned in some of the technical guidance that you get from the BSI, the Bundesamt für Sicherheit in der Informationstechnik in Germany. And the CRA just talks about that you need to check all your components of your software for security vulnerabilities. And of course, that can be done with an SBOM, or you can also take any other measure if you find one.
So I saw one or two interesting questions. One question I saw was very early on. Marcel asked, is there collaboration with the Eclipse ORC working group for WP2? And he just noted that for WP4, dummy repositories from the OpenChain tooling group could be used.
So I think the inter-Eclipse collaboration is being planned, and that's being led by, in a way, Eclipse. I am not exactly sure what are the tasks being taken on that area, but it has been discussed in the OCCTET events, and I think the Open Regulatory Compliance Working Group has been mentioned in that, but I don't know what are the exact steps on that. I do know that Eclipse is, for example, planning to make its own instance of the ORT server being created here and apply that to many of their projects, and also allow the community to use that instance, at least within some boundaries. So that's at least the plan.
There was quite
And then,
oh, sorry.
Regarding the VP4, I'm not sure which part of the OpenChain tooling group dummy repository is referring to, but we've actually have identified a set of iconic FOSS project and then also most used dependencies in popular technologies. So in principle, we could add into the iconic FOSS project lists anything we decide to add. So that's if there are like good additions from coming from, in a way, these near being communities, I think that's that those additions would be great.
I just wanted to check if anyone else wanted to unmute and ask a final question. We have about time for one more.
So I'm addressing one, the curation UI was asked whether it's a FOSS license. And the curation UI is a DoubleOpen server and it's under MIT license currently. It is already under a FOSS license and will remain to be. So we are considering moving to Apache 2.0, but yeah, no, in a way, change in the FOSS aspect of it.
I see Philippe has his hand raised.
Yes. Not a question, more just a comment there, saying that this is an important project because two things. First, if you're based in Europe and you're paying taxes in Europe, you actually help fund this project in part. So you should use it. You should at least give feedback. That's one thing. The second thing, I think it's an awesome collaboration across different open source projects, and I think that's going to be super useful, and that's a trend we want to see more of going forward.
I think this might be the first time we've had so many European open source projects explicitly working together on an EU thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's accurate.
Yes. That's especially as a collaboration. It's a good thing because it's a lot of folks working in government organization may not understand exactly what's the benefit of open source. Even though it's being celebrated, for instance, at the United Nations Open Source Week 2 weeks ago, I think there's still a lot of work to educate folks that are making policy decision on a global EU level or on a country by country level to understand what's the benefit of open source. There's a lot of lip service that's paid at times here. It's not about lip service. It's really about doing something very concrete. And so I was last week, was it last week? I think it was last week or the week before. I made a brief presentation of the OCCTET project at an event in Brussels where there were more projects that were part of the same funding cohort that were represented. And literally OCCTET, meaning the project presented here today by Martin and Andreas, where we were the only actual open source tooling project, where the other tools were mostly about, developing policies and things and that. So that's really interesting and important. We're to hold the flame, bring the flame around, and I think also it's not only about the flame, but also the fact that we provide probably here in this project probably some of the very best tools that money can buy, except it's free.
That's the best price. All right. We are at time. So I just want to say thank you so much, Andreas. Thank you so much, Martin. It's wonderful to have had you here and to have you take that time to give us such a presentation. Please have a beautiful day, and what we do expect are updates as this progresses.
You're welcome. Bye bye, everybody.
Take care. Bye bye. Have a beautiful day. And everyone, I'll see you for the next webinar, number 103, I think, which will come actually later this week. Watch the open chain space. Bye bye, all. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.